Welcome to Minimalish, a podcast about minimalism, sort of. I'm your host, Desiree, and I strongly believe that minimalism isn't meant to be an identity, a standard to live up to, a set of rules, or anything along those lines, but rather just a tool to help us make room for the things that matter in our lives. And it looks different for everyone. Each week, you'll find me here having conversations about living with less realistically and the things that matter, like motherhood and family, intentional living, mindset, loving our people, and everything in between. More than anything, it's my goal to remind you, and often myself too, that you're worthy of creating a life filled up with what matters to you, and that you're already enough just as you are. I'm so glad you're here, friend. Here's today's episode. Hi friend, welcome back to Minimalish. This is episode 62, and today's episode is not very minimal. It's not even minimal-ish. It's actually a long episode, but that's because Catherine and I had such a great chat about all of your questions. I mean, we answered as many as we could, but this time around for our Q&A, we kind of just asked for random questions, anything that deals with minimalism, anything that you wanted to know and you wanted us to chat about. I mean, we don't have all the answers, but we just talked it all out, and hopefully it is helpful to you. Hopefully it resonates with you. That's the goal of these episodes, these Q&A episodes. It's not for us to be the expert and solve all of your life problems, but rather for us to really just share our own experiences, have a conversation, and invite you into that conversation. And hopefully it feels like we're all having some coffee or whatever you like to drink together. Now, today's episode, like I said, it's a long one. We go from talking about the beginnings of minimalism, how long it took us to purge, what our favorite rooms are in the home, what our favorite systems are, and then we move to talking about new motherhood, and we really just go in on that topic. We talk about it for a while. So if you are a new mom or you just like to listen to chats about motherhood, then you're going to love this one, and I hope it's helpful for you. Before we dive in, I do want to just say one quick thing. Next week is Christmas, if you're listening to this the week it comes out. And that means that Christmas is on Wednesday this year, so there won't be a new episode on Wednesday. In fact, there's going to be a new episode on Friday of next week because it's my birthday, and I wanted to put an episode out on my birthday. So you will hear from me on Friday of next week and not Wednesday. Also, you will not hear from me the week after that. I'm taking a much-needed 1-week break in the beginning of 2020 because this podcast would be set to release on January 1st, and I think I just want to start the year with a little breather. So I hope that encourages you to do the same if you are able to. And let's dive into today's episode. Oh man, all right. We are, Catherine and I are coming to you with both of our toddlers having some sleeping issues today.
Real life over here.
Hopefully we can focus between.
Let's do it. Yeah.
You've had some sleeplessness this week.
Oh man. Yep. Never ending. There's always something. This week was extra hard, but yeah, sleeping when Owen doesn't sleep, I like panic.
Yeah, it's hard to. Sometimes I go back to like post-traumatic stress disorder of
absolutely.
Early motherhood.
Exactly. That's exactly. It was, I think I even like one of the questions that took me back, and I was like, it really was traumatic. It was rough for me, but yeah. So when he doesn't sleep or we have weeks like this, it kind of like takes over my life, but I'm glad we're doing this because it's such a nice break. It's good to talk with other moms. You know? Yeah,
it really is. All right. So we are going to start out talking about just the beginning of minimalism. And the question, there were kind of two questions about this, so I put them into one. But it just said, did you have a huge edit to become a minimalist, or did you start there? So I guess, did you start out pretty minimal to begin with? And how long did it take? Did you have to do multiple edits? So what was that like for you?
So for me, it wasn't really minimalist wasn't on my radar. It was to become tidy. And so that Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up book was pretty popular at the time, except I hadn't heard of it. My friend mentioned it to me, and I wasn't working at the time. I was home. I was a military wife. We had moved into our new house, and we were making renovations and stuff. So for me, it wasn't to become a minimalist. It was just to purge my house to a point where I felt like it was all the things that we had together that was the house that I wanted it to be and what Luke and I wanted it to be. So I followed her steps pretty closely. Mind you, I was kind of already tidy. I've never been a collector of much. We didn't get married with much, so we didn't have a whole lot. But for me, it was more like fine tuning and tailoring everything that we already did own and merging our lives together. And I think I've talked about this before, but like creating my home that represents fully what my identity wanted to be at the time. And that was letting go of a lot of, items that triggered bad memories for me. So I guess, yes, I did do a big edit for me, for what my life was and what we had accumulated at the time. And it took 6 months, I would say, ish. And since then, I've definitely had to do multiple layers. Like, when you become a mom, you get different stuff. When you move, you have different stuff. And we've lived in 4 houses? Can't remember now. But we've lived in several houses since we've gotten married. So we've definitely had different phases of it. But initially we did a big purge. And since then, we're just super mindful about what we buy. But we also live in a bigger house now. So we have a little bit more than we did at the time in terms of like furniture. But we're more mindful about other things. So our initial goal was to be tidy. And now it's become into minimalism because I think we're seeing how little we can live with, but also meet that tidiness need. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah,
kind of merge both of them. Yeah.
I can relate to that just because we moved a lot. We moved a lot before we ever purged, so we accumulated a lot as we went because we moved from smaller, like 1-bedroom, 600-foot apartment to 4-bedroom and then back down to kind of a middle ground now. And we ended up purging when we were in the 4-bedroom house, which is funny because when we purged, the house was still not full. We had a big empty room, basically. It just had like a desk in it. It is the most giant bedroom ever. It just had a desk in it and like random crap. And I think what's funny is when I think of that bedroom, I think that bedroom made me realize that we didn't need that space, that space felt excessive to us because even after being in that house for over a year, almost 2 years, we never did anything with it. But when we jumped into minimalism through the Minimalism documentary. So it was for us, like that's what it was for us that caused us to declutter is just this idea of minimalism. And they do such a good job of really showing so many perspectives. I feel like I don't know why they're not paying me yet because I talk about this all the time, talk about their documentary all the time. Come on. I'm kidding. I think that is such a game changer. They did so well and I recommend it. We watched it together.
So good. We watched it after I did my thing and Luke was like, I'm so glad we're doing this. Like, I'm so glad we've done this or whatever. And that one's a good one. I always forget about that one, but
Yeah. And we did it so quickly because it just happened. It was near our spring break. So once our spring break came, we were both teachers at the time. We just took all that time and we purged. And like, we didn't really have guidance in the purging because thinking of that documentary, it doesn't really tell you like how to be minimal because the more I think about it, minimalism usually starts for people with decluttering, but it doesn't have to start that way. I think the mindset shift really is more important, even to start with. I think that documentary does a good job with the mindset. So that may have been why it was so easy for us to go through it. Plus, we had all the time, but like it was easy for us to really just get rid of things because of that, I think. So
that's great. That was a good one. I love them. They're some of my favorite. Just the way the words that they use, how they speak and how they phrase things makes you think so differently about stuff. It's so good.
They're definitely artists.
Yes.
Their writing is so good. But I was going to say, too, that recently we just purged our basement twice, probably in the past 5 months. We are definitely still purging. I would say we're decluttered as much as we want to be from the day to day. But when we decided we wanted a play space in our basement, this stuff we thought we were going to keep, we don't actually need it. So I think it's just a long game, really. There is an importance in shifting your mindset so you're not constantly bringing stuff in, or else you literally will be decluttering every day. And that can be really wasteful, but it doesn't mean we're still going to accumulate stuff. We can't put some kind of ideal on ourselves. One day we'll be done decluttering. It's just never going to happen.
Right. And I think the shift was for us, and like I've said, having kids really changed it for us because, I was home alone and Luke was at work all the time. He couldn't participate in the journey that I started for us. But once we had kids, your kid is always going through a new developmental phase, and that does require new stuff, new clothes, new toys, everything that's appropriate for their age group. And so, like you said, I don't think you're ever going to be done because you will always have a phase that you've completed and have to cast off and get new stuff for. I think it's easy to do one big purge before kids, but if you have kids, it will be layered and it will be multiple, but that doesn't mean that you're not doing a good enough job. It doesn't mean that you aren't finished or can't be in maintenance mode. I think you just get to a point of what you like, and then once that phase is over, you can buy the things that were easy for you in the same, in different things, but easy for you in the same way, if that makes sense. So, I don't think you'll ever be done either. I think you will have multiple with each phase of life, but you can kind of maintain the same mindset, like you said.
Kind of along the same lines. What is your favorite area of your house that you have minimized or decluttered, whatever you want to say, however you want to say that?
The kitchen is definitely a great place for us that we've minimized because it makes our daily functioning so much easier. And it's just so much faster. We know what we can, if we do have to move, we know what we can survive on and the things that we like. I know that I'm not a baker, so some of the equipment that I don't need has been nice that I don't have to buy. It has been funny, though, because I have had family members cook in my kitchen. They're like, do you have this? Do you have that? And I'm like, no. And I'm really confident in that. I'm really okay and settled with what we own in the kitchen and sticking to the things that I like to do in the kitchen because I'm not a great cook, but I have to cook and I choose to do it for my family. But I'm glad that we can put things away in cabinets and there's not a lot out. So that one definitely. My wardrobe has been another one. While it has looked different over the years, having a smaller wardrobe with multiple uses and picking things I really like has made my day easier, even though as a mom, you don't always get to put your nice items on or anything like that. But
yeah,
you do end up picking things in the future if you do buy more clothes or you go back to the same pieces over and over once you've minimized them and you really learn to love them and appreciate them for what they are. So definitely those two. And then Owen's room has always has stayed pretty minimal. Because obviously we had decluttered before he was born. So his room is truly functional. And I love that because anyone could go in there and take care of him and find what they need.
The wardrobe for me has been a huge difference. I think getting dressed has been hard for me. That sounds so ridiculous. But
it's real.
Yeah. Even before I was a mom, it was in postpartum for me when I don't want to say became minimalist because I don't really use that label, but you know what I mean? So that was a huge difference because I did not like how I felt in any of the clothes that I had, but they were just looming in my closet, making me feel bad about myself. So now what I have, it just is it fits my lifestyle so well that even whenever I'm hanging around the house, I feel good in what I'm wearing. And that has just made a huge difference for me with mental health in general, especially being a stay-at-home mom and being home all day.
What happens is that it's such an internal and external change that happens to you and your body. And then somehow you're supposed to look at your wardrobe and think oh, that represents me, but that's not who I am now. But it was me, but it's not me. And I don't fit into that, but I still love those clothes. And choosing to find things postpartum is how is this really going to make me feel good, but also help me accept the phase of life that I'm in, because I haven't lost baby weight, if you will. At this point, it's not even baby weight anymore. It's just weight.
Yeah.
But the wardrobe, I think, represents just my, like I said, acceptance and my willingness to participate in the life that I am living now. And whether or not my body changes, my wardrobe can still look like me. And I think that can be pretty powerful when you're going through postpartum, because it's a whole identity shift, but your wardrobe doesn't have to look like you went through hell and back. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I know I finally just told myself, and I suggest this to new moms, if you can hold off, try not to spend too much money on maternity clothes, because it's postpartum that it's going to last longer, and you're going to want to feel, your body is not necessarily going to bounce back, and you're going to have to find a whole new way to dress yourself. And I think because minimalism came so quickly after that, and I was able to say, okay, if I have less, but I have things that I like, I gave myself permission to curate a wardrobe that I loved, and to edit it down to not necessarily a number. I want to shop secondhand first for my wardrobe. And with that, I've kind of given myself a little bit more permission to say, if I want to edit a little bit more, and if what comes in ends up going back out, I won't feel as bad about it, but not in the way of it. I guess I just want to say, like, I still like clothes. I still like changing it up, but I basically have more of a set template in my head of, I know what I like.
Yep. And I think you find that when you become a mother, because you don't have time to mess around. You don't have time to sit there and change outfits all the time and figure out what looks good or what makes you feel good. And, there's a lot of like discussion out there as far as like, if you change your wardrobe after postpartum, you might never get your body back. So try to keep the clothes you had so you can fit into your old, jeans and stuff like that. We've created such a culture of you have to bounce back. And I think that adds so much to our mental state, and that idea that if we don't, we're a failure. And, that feeds into postpartum depression and just sends you down a really bad spiral. At least it did for me. And so I had this expectation in my mind that if I didn't create a new wardrobe for myself, and I didn't get back into my old stuff because I spent money on them and they were nice, well, then I was a failure as a mother and a person, and I'll never be the same person I was before. But it's not true. Like, I had to create a new wardrobe after I had a baby, and I can say I love this wardrobe just as much as my old wardrobe, but they're very different. Yeah, I think it's a really important aspect of accepting the phase that you're in motherhood.
Yeah. The wardrobe is deep. I seriously believe it. I fully believe it. I actually did have a question about wardrobe, so we weren't going to answer that one, but we kind of talked about it. So there you go. If you asked that question, if you're listening. So, all right.
That's great.
Let's move into talking about systems. This is a fun question. It says, what is your favorite system you've developed in your life?
So this kind of goes back to the other, what's your favorite part of the house that you've minimized? My favorite system goes hand in hand with that, and that's our kitchen system, because it has made me super efficient, and the cleanup can be really quick, and anyone can do it. Anyone in my family can be taught how to do it or know where things go. And we live in our kitchen. It is the heart of the home, and it's really the center. Whether you cook or not, you always have to use the fridge. You might use your microwave. You still have things that you utilize in the kitchen. And so for us, the system of putting things away, where they go, everything has a home. And then to top that off, the kitchen is closed. Knowing that I can put an end to my day working in the home, turning the lights off and leaving that space. It's like your office. You can turn the lights off and leave it and know that it's done for the next day. And so whether you work at home or you are a stay-at-home mom or you work out of the home, like, your kitchen can definitely set the tone of your house sometimes. At least I feel that way. And I think it can make the biggest impact too when it's clean. And if you have people over, people gather around the kitchen. It's just kind of like a magnet for gathering. And so I can count on it being cleaned up pretty quickly and being confident that it looks nice or that it can function well if I'm serving other people. It totally does get trashed by the end of the day. Like, I'm not going to lie that it doesn't get destroyed because we live there. It's our most used space. But because of the system that we put in place, it is so easily put back together. And I think it makes the biggest impact in my mental health, being at home all the time, that I can, close it down and feel super productive. Even though the stuff gets used every day, I think it's kind of like a game for me that because we use it so much, how quickly can I get it back to zero?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that would be mine.
What does it look like for you? What does like the actual system look like?
I think it for me, and if you've seen pictures of my house on my Insta blog, like there's not a whole lot on the countertops, but there's some stuff on the countertops. So I don't think it's this idea of like having completely clean countertops or having everything out on your countertops to be efficient. But I think just finding balance of what speaks to you. So for me, I like to wipe things down quickly, so there aren't a lot of stuff on the countertops, but at the same time, I like it decorated. And just like little touches here and there to make it feel homey. So for me, it's been finding a balance of what is actually in places and then getting the majority of the stuff that we actually use in cabinets, minimizing to the point like all of our appliances except for our coffee maker and our microwave are in cabinets. We have a slow cooker, an Instant Pot, a Vitamix, and a toaster. And they can all fit in one cabinet. Same with sugar and flour. A lot of people like to put stuff on the countertops with that kind of stuff, but I choose not to because I just don't want to see it all the time,
Yeah.
And sometimes it will help you minimize the mess if you know you have to pull it out and use it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's helped me tailor a lifestyle of being deliberate and intentional about what I choose to make. We pretty much pull the toaster out every day, but we take care of it because we touch it every day and we clean it and put it back. So it just, I don't know, it just makes you really mindful. And then making sure things fit in the cabinet, there's room to breathe in all the cabinets. I just tidied up kind of like a catch-all cabinet. It had like vitamins and water bottles and cookbooks and stuff. And so I reset that and I moved the cabinet to something that I thought would be a little bit better because, again, since kids, we've had to add certain things like kids medicine and kids, I don't know, syringes, like what are those Tylenol things? And just like little stuff you that no one tells you where to put. So you've got to figure that stuff out. So for me, I can function in my kitchen just so quickly. And it's been about putting things away, having empty, negative space in certain places, and being able to have anybody in my kitchen and know where stuff goes. And I guess a system that makes sense, like it's intuitive. Like you go to one drawer for this one thing, you move to another drawer. Like as you're moving throughout the kitchen, you're not wasting time. I don't know how to explain that, but it's something that my mom has a gift in. She has an amazing way of organizing a kitchen. And growing up, you always knew where things were, and they're kind of where you thought that they would be anyway. So you put them there, or like how the kitchen is outlined, where the oven is or where the fridge is. Like we have our glasses by our fridge. So you open a cabinet and fill up your drink, or some basic things like oven mitts are right by the oven. So you grab the oven mitt and open the oven, things like that, that just when you go into a kitchen that doesn't operate that way, it's very obvious how much you can like stumble over yourself. But when you find that rhythm in your kitchen system, you cut out so much time, which I think for me is necessary. I just don't have time to be thumbing around to find stuff.
Yeah, that's good. And then you close your kitchen at night. So you do like a reset at night.
Yep, every single night. And I love that my husband participates in that. And if I'm gone, he will do it every night for me. And we just love that feeling of like, okay, kitchen's cleaned, kitchen's closed, and we dim the lights and we leave. And that was part of growing up too. And it was just a signal that the day is over and it's time for you to rest. And I think there's value in knowing that you've worked hard in a day and you can shut the space off and you've earned the rest by closing your kitchen in essence. So, I love that anyone in our family can do our system and pick up the slack when I'm, not 100%. So,
yeah. That's, I think one of mine is just kind of the end of the day reset. It has been huge for us. And I'm not always the one to do it. Even right now, we were just talking about bedtime before we started recording because my daughter was screaming her head off because my husband was putting her down, but he used to do bedtime and I would do the reset, and we just switched a couple of months ago. So he's been doing it, and honestly, he's a better homemaker than me anyway, so it works. But he's just always been more tidy. I mean, he has he grew up in a military home, and just like, I feel like, I don't know, he's just always been very neat and tidy, and I'm so the opposite. But I can still, like, that system of resets. I think the first time I was introduced to resets was on this podcast. This podcast, I like to say, is just me learning things from people most of the time, because it was my first episode of Minimalish. So once it like shifted from what it was before that, I talked to Lauren from An Organized Life on Instagram, and she talked about resets, and I was like, whoa, I never thought to put things back in the place where they came before I leave a room. Who would have thought that, you know? But no, I don't do it all day long just because that's just not who I am, but I do it at the end of the day. And sometimes I do it. I used to do it at nap time more, but as my workload has increased, I don't do it as much. But things change, and it still works for us at the end of the day.
They make such a big impact. They don't take very long once you've minimized, but once you do it, they make a huge impact.
Yeah, I think that's another little question that I got in my question box about resets, like how to make them not take super long. And I think that what you said is just it. It's there gets to a point where you've decluttered enough that it just doesn't take as long, because I can only imagine that before minimalism, I didn't even do a reset anyways, but if I did, it would have taken me forever. But I think also, like, the first couple of times that you are doing it, or if you're trying to implement it and you haven't decluttered yet and you have a lot of stuff still, then I think even with a lot of stuff, I don't know if this is helpful, but I think that you don't have to wait. If this is something that you would want to do, I think it does take the load off in itself, because it's something where if you do it regularly, it's going to be less and less. Like when my house was a total mess, disaster, because we had so much stuff, it would have taken me forever the first couple of times, probably, until I got it to a little bit more of a reset space. Of course, less stuff is going to make it less time. But I think just with practice, like, you don't necessarily have to wait. You don't have to feel like, oh, I'm going to live in this house that feels overwhelming to me and feels like a disaster until I can get the time to declutter. I think that making it a habit can at least lessen it a little bit. Does that make sense?
And that's a great point too, because it does make sense, because if you start with the resets, you know what you're touching every day and what's actually going to annoy you resetting all the time, and that's not worth your time, and you get frustrated at certain tasks. Like for me, it got to the point where resetting pillows on the couch got really annoying because they were all on the floor, and I took 3 minutes to put pillows back in place that were just decorative that ended up on the floor anyway, just as an example. So you get to a point where you are touching these items that end up frustrating you, or doing these little tasks within your reset that just really eat up your time and kind of don't have any point to reset. And then once you get rid of them, the reset is cut down even more. So if you start there, I think that's a really good point. Starting with the resets is great because you know how you want to operate. You know what you want your house to look like, and then you cut out the items that don't include that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and just for reference, resetting is basically just like putting things back to ground zero, like where they would be if your house was tidied. And I think pots and pans, like our kitchen was just always a disaster. before minimalism because we had so many pots and pans and they could just pile up, and I would use so many within one day because I wouldn't wash them right away. Now I can't do that because we don't have as many. So I have to wash them. I get to a point in the day where I'm like, I've run out because we don't have a microwave either because it broke.
Man, I don't know if I could live though. I love the microwave. It's so bad.
I feel like a pioneer woman.
I love that.
I reheat my coffee in a pot. Sad. An actual pot on the stove. It's not really
healthier for you too. Isn't there something about, I don't know. We can get
probably. I don't know.
I hope you're enjoying today's conversation with Catherine and I, but I'm interrupting to tell you about two great companies that are making this episode possible today. First, I want to tell you about Warby Parker. They believe prescription glasses shouldn't cost you more than a plane ticket or an iPhone. They definitely meet and exceed their goal. They provide high-quality prescription eyewear at a fraction of the price. Their glasses start at $95, which includes the prescription lenses, plus anti-glare and anti-scratch coatings, and they even have blue light filtering lenses available as well. I especially love their mission to give back. Almost 1 billion people worldwide lack access to glasses, and Warby Parker partners with nonprofits like Vision Spring to ensure that for every pair of glasses sold, a pair is distributed to someone in need. My Warby Parker glasses are my favorite glasses I've ever owned. They fit perfectly, the quality is amazing, and I wear them all the time. I love that I got to try them on at home, and my family was able to give me some input on which frames I should get. They make it so easy to find the frames that you like. They start with an online quiz, which is what I started with. You just answer a few quick questions, and they suggest some frames that would fit your style and your face. And then you can order their home try-on, which is free. You order the 5 pairs of glasses. You'll try them on for 5 days, and they ship free. Plus, there's a prepaid return label. It makes shipping it back so easy. And I am so excited that Warby Parker just introduced their new product, Scout. It's comfortable, breathable, affordable daily contact lenses. They resist drying for lasting hydration, and you can wear them for less than $1.25 a day. And you can order a trial pack, which includes 6 days worth of contacts for only $5, and then receive $5 off your next Warby Parker order. You can order the free home try-on program or request a trial of Scout contact lenses for just $5. Visit warbyparker.com/minimalish to learn more. That's warbyparker.com/minimalish. Okay, let's get back to today's episode.
But the question about new motherhood was more so about, they said what is actually needed when it comes to a baby. She's going to be becoming a first-time mom, the person who asked, and she's kind of feeling overwhelmed by all of the suggestions. So I feel like I felt this, and I didn't, I always want to make a disclaimer when I talk about motherhood for some reason of just that, I'm not a parenting expert or anything, so I don't have expert advice on what you need for a baby. But whenever I was asking around, I wanted to know from all of my friends what was needed. And while a lot of that advice was really helpful, sometimes it just felt like so much because everyone liked different things. And there were some things that I heard from multiple sources, but I was in the mindset that if I can give my baby everything, as much as I possibly can afford and as much as I possibly can accumulate, then I'm doing the best for them. And that's because it was, I was so opposite of minimalism before minimalism. So, we had so much, and we had a lot of it was handed down to us. We didn't pay for much of it because so much of it was gifted. We were blessed by so many gifts, and I got a lot of it secondhand. I was on Buy Nothing. Do you know Buy Nothing, the Facebook groups?
Oh, I guess I don't know that.
Oh, you should look it up. So it's Buy Nothing is local Facebook groups where people will just give
donate
things away. So,
cool.
So it's a really good way to give things away if you do want to donate. But I was on there just soaking in all the baby stuff. So I need that and I need that.
So
Exactly. So anyways, I accumulated a lot. And I think that my biggest suggestion of what is needed, and every baby is different, obviously, and things that I really, looking back, that I found excessive, where like all the swings and everything, although we had them and we used them because we had them. But looking back, like she was happier set in our little, like sitting on the couch next to me in our little boppy.
Yeah.
The boppy was great.
Or with you.
That was great. Yeah, or just with me. You. Yeah, like that's what I mean. Just like kind of lounging on me on the boppy, or lounging right next to me on that, and or on the play mat playing. Those are the places that I would set her down most, and those are the most helpful spaces, because that's where they can really learn to move, is in places like that where they have, not on the couch. Don't let them learn to move on the couch. But never mind. Don't quote me on that. But personally, I do say that I think if we add to our family, which I think we will, but I don't think that I will be minimal on things like basic onesies or anything. I know I remember I had a ton for that newborn phase, and I was worried I didn't have enough. And honestly, that was a valid worry, because I feel like they, especially just within the first month, they just go through them so fast because they're always spitting up or having a blowout. And I did not want to do the laundry super often. I didn't have any kind of laundry system going on in early postpartum. So that's my one non-minimal suggestion, is have enough onesies, basic, plain onesies. You can find them for super cheap secondhand. I'm sure someone will donate them to you, but that's a must, I think. Unless you just want to have them naked, wrapped up in a blankie, that works too. Or if you need to take them somewhere,
do whatever. Yeah, listen, just survive. I'll get to this in the second part of the question, but I feel the same way. Like the onesie department, which I'll share with once I get to it, like which ones for me were like a lifesaver. But anyways, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And for me, and any mother, you don't know what kind of kid you're going to have and what their specific needs will be. I was in the dark about what motherhood actually looked like. And I had decluttered my home, kind of, we were on this like minimalish journey before we had kids. And I knew that I didn't want to have a lot going into motherhood. I was completely blindsided about the kind of kid I was given, and in the best way, of course, because he is such a light and such a wonderful thing. But I didn't mentally prepare well for that. And I don't know, it was just, I was so caught up on him that I think for me, I would do it so differently, just because I think I would truly invest in myself, in the things that I actually needed, or invest in the things that I really loved. Because looking back, I would say I didn't enjoy the things that I had that I even used. And they weren't super convenient, and they weren't great necessarily. So, but I feel like a lot of people tend to over-prepare. Maybe you felt this way, like they over-prepare and they have to give away more if they do choose to declutter later, instead of under-preparing and buying what you actually need. So if I could say, wait until you see what kind of kid you're going to have. Because like you, I could have used a lot more clothing. He had reflux. Owen had silent reflux. I had no idea. And he just went through so many clothes. And I just kept thinking, well, I'll do laundry and I'm going to stick to my minimal wardrobe. But I was a mess. And I had kind of the same as you. I had some of the entertainment devices and things like that. He just was not satisfied by any of those. And we didn't need those. He just needed me. So for me, my best advice is like the things that ended up being the most important to me were the most simple designs and that fulfilled the most basic needs. So strip your expectations down to like the most basic. So sleeping, eating, and clothes. Like you don't need all the gadgets. A baby carrier is nice, but nothing will prepare you for the kind of kid that you're given. And for me, it was such a shock that I could have bought all the things or nothing, and I still wouldn't have known. So you just don't know. So in my mind, it's better to like not have it all and then find out what you actually need and buy it or get it then. For me, it was talking to my friends. I believe that the best resource that you can have is actually talking to moms that have already been in your shoes. And I know there was a few moms that tried to tell me a few things that if they're listening, I'm so sorry. I was like, did not listen. But I'm like, honestly, knowing if I could be the person I was now, then, I would have soaked up so much more, and been so much more prepared. And I think that when you truly are asking for the purpose of what do I actually need, because I don't want to add overwhelm to what I'm already overwhelmed with. And baby stuff can overwhelm you very quickly. Because there's always like the best gadgets out there, that fear-based marketing strategies of, your kid's not going to develop properly or all that kind of stuff. But don't listen to that. Like, talk to your friends and hear from them what actually worked. And I can remember my best friend taking me, Lori, if you're listening, you're a lifesaver. She took me to Walmart before Owen was due, and she walked me through the store and would pick things off the shelf and just throw them in the cart. And I'd be like, okay, well, why do I need that? And she would explain it to me. I'd be like, oh, okay. And she was so helpful. And literally the things that she bought were the things that I ended up using. Like, the baby shower was great. We got a lot of nice things, but it was the friend that showed up for me that said, this is what you actually need. And one of those items was those Gerber baby white bundle packs, onesies.
Yeah.
That you can get from Walmart. You can literally throw them out if they are soiled. And you could buy I think they come in like 3 or 6-pack. They were so, so necessary. And it's just interesting, like, listen to your friends, listen to your mom friends. Don't be that mom that believes you're going to have a special experience, and that you're above it. No, like, we've all been there. Listen to your friends. Wait and see what you're actually given, and then get the things that you need. And I think you'll be surprised how much that will impact your experience, because you don't want to be blindsided. I don't know. I just want to save new moms from the darkness that I was in during postpartum. So
yeah.
I think it's so hard because when I, like, as you were saying that, I think that is so true. As you're pregnant or like towards the end of pregnancy and thinking that anxiousness of, okay, I have no idea what is coming. I want to prepare as good as I can for what I have no idea what is coming.
Yeah, right.
And I think it's so important to have that resource of other moms to talk to, whether you are close with family and you can talk to family members transparently. There can be so many dynamics there. I know that helped me on so many levels, but also like mom friends who are ahead of you. But it can be hard. I think if you don't already have that community, it can be hard to find it. But I know there are resources where I was when I had her. We were in Charlottesville, and with our hospital, there was like a new moms group, and it can be really hard to get yourself to go to that kind of thing. But I do think it's so good to have someone to be like, oh, I was freaking out because this happened. And then they could be like, yeah, that was happening too. And then you're like, oh, right. Okay, this isn't just me. My baby's there's nothing wrong with them, even though they're spitting up all the time, So it's just those little things that you're like up, at least for me, I feel like I was always up in the middle of the night nursing and Googling the worst possible thing. And I don't do that.
No. Don't.
But I'm sure that I did. But it's like the friend who tells me not to do that, and also the friend who helps ease my mind after I've done that. It's like you need those people, and it's hard to say that when I know that it can be hard to find that resource. But there are moms groups, and really recommend seeking that out if you don't already have some kind of community already. That is definitely. I love that you said that was the best thing, was like the advice from other friends and just the community in general.
Well, and I would add to that, like, no gadget is going to solve your problems if you're having a tough time during motherhood. Like, yes, they are helpful. There are great things that they've invented now to give you peace of mind or whatever, but your baby needs you. And if you are not a whole person and fully present, it's going to impact your experience. So you could have all the right gadgets that all the parenting experts have recommended, and safety and entertainment and developmental things. But if you are spiraling down a very dark tube, like, that's not going to help those gadgets aren't going to impact how you're doing things. So just be mindful of that, like almost prepare in that way of like, these gadgets aren't going to save me from motherhood. It's me. Like I am it. They just want you. And if I could tell myself back then, like, stop worrying about all these things, just be present for your baby, even though the things that we had to worry about were very intense. It was a very hard time. It just doesn't, the stuff is not going to matter.
Yeah. And if not to recommend stuff right after you said that, but no, but I do like how you said they just want you. We went through this period of time that I think it's pretty common, around like 4 to 6 weeks, where she would just cry. Mm-hmm. I don't know, for at least an hour. And I know some people experience it way worse. Some people don't experience it at all. And it's like inconsolable and think something's wrong, but it's not. Like, it's just a developmental thing, I think, or, that's the theory. But anything that could help me hold her basically was really helpful and continued to be helpful moving forward. So like a baby carrier or a wrap, that definitely helped us. That's one of the things that I'll keep for the next baby, but it's those things that just help you keep them close. And there are times when you are going to need a break and to put them down, but you don't need a fancy gadget to put them down in either. Having people to help if you can is so helpful postpartum. I know. Not everyone has that.
But to help for sure.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, like, if you kind of know what's important to you, but before the baby comes, make a list of the things that are important to you, not like the gadgets, not the stuff. I'm talking about things like sleeping, eating, that sort of thing. For us, sleep training was important. So whatever items aligned with that, so like blackout curtains, a sound machine, a good crib, you can have minimal, but still have the necessary items to accomplish the things that you need to do. So, talk to your mom friends and find out what kind of things are really important, like if breastfeeding or bottle feeding, whatever it is, whatever things that align with your values when it comes to motherhood, figure out what the most basic items are for that category and then go from there. And then ask, like, you're going to find these lists on Pinterest that are just, so long. And you could take that list to your friends and say, or your mom or whoever it is that's important that can tell you the truth. Have them start crossing off things that don't matter, but still align with what you want to do. So, I don't know if that was helpful, but.
Yeah, it was. And I think too, when you are on those sites on Pinterest, you'll see like, all of these opinions. And when you said about what aligns with your values, like only change your values if the only thing that should change your values is if your first option wasn't working for you. You know what I mean? As a family, because there are so many mommy wars or whatever you want to call them out there. And it's just crazy because like you said, if sleep training is important to you, someone out there is going to say that you're a bad mom because of that. Or if co-sleeping is important to you, someone else, whatever. I don't even know if that's considered opposite, but whatever side you're on, breastfeeding, bottle feeding, and not that you need to be on a side, but whatever you choose to do, I should say, someone is going to tell you that's not the right thing. So the only reason you should change it is if it's not working for you and your family, because I think like the confidence level of a new mom oftentimes is so very low, at least it was for me, of just the confidence in what you're doing. And so all of that killed me. Anytime I saw something that was opposite of what I was doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I traumatizing my child because I let them cry for 10 minutes or whatever, and here we are 2 years later, and I don't think I traumatized her, but we'll see. Hopefully not.
It was great. Well, and I can give another example. It's like I couldn't breastfeed. We hit tongue lip tie issues, latch issues. I had PCOS with low milk supply. Breastfeeding, it was my main intention going into motherhood. It was like my biggest thing is I wanted to breastfeed. And then your expectations have to change when real life hits you. And so, even with those core values of the things that you think are important, like you said, have room to change, have room for error. And if those items that align with those core values have to change, then swap them out. Like it doesn't have to be, you don't have to accumulate more because you're changing your plan. You can do your plan thoughtfully and problem solve intentionally, I guess. So we had to figure all that out, and that was tough. So but we did it. We made it work, and he's 2.5 and doing just fine. So
yeah, breastfeeding was mentally a struggle. Because of all the messaging about it. And I love breastfeeding, and I'm still nursing because every time I go to talk about that, it's not because I want, like, not necessarily, it's not been a choice. It's just like, I tried to wean, and I am such a laid back parent, and it really wasn't working for us to wean. It was just such a struggle, and I didn't feel like forcing it. So now I'm like, I don't know how I'm ever going to stop this. But in early motherhood, it was so hard. And I hate that, like, I felt it was one of my core values as well, and something I wanted, but I know I was struggling, and I cried over it, and it was a huge part of my anxiety. And like, luckily it was able to work out, but it's not everything, your child will be healthy either way. Like, that's not going to make or break your child's health. So I don't know. This whole episode has turned into like a pep talk for the new mom, but it's good because so it's like what we needed. Yeah. So, okay. Last question about baby stuff again, because we're now having pep talk for baby things. Keeping baby stuff. So this question said, what about cluttered keepsakes that are from your first kid that you don't want to keep for your second kid? So I think what they meant by that was just, if you're keeping a lot of stuff from your first kid, you don't want to rebuy that thing for your second kid. But it feels cluttered, I guess, from your first kid. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I think this is a tough one because I think it depends on how spaced out your kids are. I think it depends on how your feelings change and the market for new gadgets, because new things are being released all the time that they improve upon and stuff like that. So it's a tough one. I've kept a few things. I mean, I've kept a good amount of things that I think are valuable, but I've sold a lot and given away a lot. But this is my take on it, and this is very personal. I don't look at newborn life with fond memories. It was actually really traumatic for me. And from, I would say his first 6 months of life, I don't really want to be reminded of how it was. And I would do things so differently now, which I think every mom feels that way once they're like down the line. But once you get to a point where you feel like they're okay and like you're doing a good job as a mother, my feelings towards the stuff changed a lot. And so I think I don't really want to have that many hand-me-downs. My main criteria when I'm looking at the stuff that we're going to keep or pass along is just, is it neutral? Is it like clothing? Is it gender neutral, depending if we can have a girl or a boy? And then was it something that I really loved to use that made my life easier? So that was like the Boppy Lounger was super great for keeping him on the couch, but there are some bad memories attached to it. So sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh, I remember that one day I was pumping and he was crying and I couldn't produce any milk to give him. And it was sad and he was crying. And so I think has to be such a personal thing. And again, if you are really not trying to spend money later, I think it can be valuable that you can keep things. But I only have one kid and we are spacing out, if we have more, spacing them out quite a big stretch. Like I don't know when we'll add to our family, but he's already 2.5. So I think a lot will have changed by then. The things that I will keep are the things that worked, I think. So for us, it's been a crib. The crib that we have for him has been great. So we will hopefully transfer him to a toddler bed and keep the crib for the next child. The dresser that we use is a changing table. So basically the things that we've utilized for the past 2.5 years that have been main things, we'll definitely keep. But it's tough too because it depends on your financial situation as well. So I can't say like how to do it. I think it really has to be personal, but I just don't want a lot of stuff that reminds me of a hard time that I had. And I think I want an entirely new experience, knowing what I know now for the next kid. So that's kind of where I'm at. We had a lot of things that were given to us secondhand for Owen. We, like you said, we didn't pay for a whole lot the first time around. And now I feel like my feelings have actually changed. Like, I want to invest my money into things that I really like, that when I do become, have another kid, that postpartum is even more fluid for me, because I like the stuff that I bought, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That definitely makes sense.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, having different colors or different types of stuff. I really think that having the I don't know, what are they called? Like the 2-in-1 type of things or the 4-in-1 type of things are really useful, because they can grow with you and change. And if it's not expired, then keep it if that's something that you spent good money on. So I don't know. It kind of varies for me. I have mixed feelings about it. I do have a tub of clothes in the basement of Owen's. And I think every time I look at it and go through it, I take out more and more and more, just because I want the next kid to feel like I invested as much as I have into Owen and just have a new experience. But that's a personal thing. Like, I can't say that's like super financially like savvy. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard for me.
Yeah. I feel like it's so different for us. I almost can count on one hand how many items of clothing I bought Gemma, because of we have family nearby and they're constantly and we're very grateful, but because of that, I just feel like I've never, like, sometimes I feel like, oh, I wish I could curate her wardrobe or have a capsule kids wardrobe, but I just never will. Like, it's right. Or at least because of the blessing of what we have family that gives us a lot of stuff, and I could look at that negatively if I wanted to, but so with her, I've kept things that are favorites because of that, because it's just what it is. And I tell myself that I want less for her because we had so much for her, and we still do clothing wise. So I don't keep a lot of it. I donate a lot of it. And I always I say this like as recommendations for people, and I say it to myself, is that if you are waiting a long time in between kids, or it depends on the situation, but pretty much any baby thing can be bought secondhand or gotten hand me down. And so, I mean, for us, we're definitely there's things like car seats that just aren't as easy to get secondhand, I feel like, or, if you have a good one and it's not going to be expired, then why not keep it? And it's not huge, although, the one we're using now is, but we'll use it for a while. So yeah, the 4-in-1 type of things. But, we just got rid of a bunch of like the swings and things that we were keeping around. At first another suggestion that we did, but then it came back around, so it didn't work forever, but we gave it to friends to borrow, because we gave things to friends to borrow that we thought we probably wanted to keep, and then it came back. We still don't have another one, and I don't want this in my basement right now. And I don't think we even need it for the next kid. And if we do, if our next kid comes around and we think we really need a swing, then I'm sure I can find one that I absolutely love. Right. Secondhand for cheap. So, or if you want to buy it new, however you want to get it, but it's a personal choice. It really is, because, it depends on what you value. But the thing is, if you are letting go of baby stuff, it's most likely you can find someone to donate to, and like someone in your community, someone in need. There are organizations out there. So it's not necessarily that it's wasteful to get rid of it, because there are so many people in need of that stuff.
And it feels so much better doing that than keeping it. And I know a lot of the feedback maybe we get on our pages, it's like, oh, but it's so sentimental. The thing is that you have to get good at letting go of things in general in other areas to be able to let go of that stuff, because can be sentimental. For me, it wasn't sentimental because I had already done the work in other places in my home. And I knew that if I let it accumulate, I would be back to square one. And one of the rules that the minimalists say he said you can kind of pretty much get rid of anything under $20 because it can be easily replaced. There will never be a shortage of baby clothes. There'll never be a shortage of baby kitchen gear, like all the things. You can always buy that or find it, like you said, or get it somewhere. So hanging on to it doesn't serve any purpose. You're just creating a warehouse wherever in your home. And two, like for me, I just don't want to have to deal with that stuff and have it resurface again later down the road when I'm trying to make a new experience for myself with a new child. So yeah, we just don't hold on to a lot.
Yeah, I think of things too when I'm setting aside what I want to donate or when I want to keep with her clothes, because I still do keep, I keep less and less as she gets older. Now it's like two things out of the whole bunch. It used to be more sentimental. And when I've gone through those bins recently because I needed to pare them down a little bit, I think about this fact that in my head, I'm like, oh, it would be so, if I had another girl, it would be so sweet to see this same Christmas dress on the next baby. But I don't know. Won't really make that much of a difference? Or will I really feel that way when on Christmas Eve when I'm trying to whisk my family out of the house? And will I really look at that dress and be like, oh, that was so sweet that was on Gemma once, you know? I don't know. Exactly. Maybe that's really sweet and sentimental. But when it comes down to it, I think our memories aren't as tied to stuff as we think they are. I think we put too much responsibility on stuff for holding our memories, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think because it's like your senses are involved, like your sense of touch and your sense of smell and everything, it immediately takes you back to these memories. And so the thing is, like, a picture can do the same thing. Yeah. And if I have a picture of Owen in a specific outfit that I really loved, that picture is worth more because he's in it. Mm-hmm. You know, he's not like if there's not a body in the clothes, it doesn't make it special. You know, it's just an outfit. But if there's a picture of him in that time, like it's more valuable to me. So I've had an easier time lately letting go of clothes. And I think too, it's so much healthier to live in the here and now, because it makes you available and makes room in your mind and your emotions to be present for whatever you want to feel now. And if you're hanging on to a lot of that from the past, you're not here for the present. And if I kept everything from my kind of traumatic new motherhood phase, I would be full. You know, I would, my cup would be overflowing with pain, and I don't need that to feel that to be present with my toddler now. So I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
That's what we just did in our basement. I mean, we realized that our home, we were feeling discontent in our home because it's small, and especially the living space of it is small. Like square footage, it's not terribly small, but the actual space we can live in day to day is small. And then we have a huge basement that was, a lot of it was taken up by baby stuff. And if we can make a play space in this basement, then we might feel a little less, stuffy in here. Right. So we did. And I realized that kind of looking at that baby stuff every day, it didn't necessarily bring up negative feelings in me, but it kind of just kept bringing up the question of when is this happening again? Because that's a question that is always in my head. And I just don't want to have that. I don't need that question looming over my everyday, because sometimes it makes me anxious.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. And I, we talk about this all the time, is like clutter can be in your mind too. And while physical clutter obviously adds up and you can see it, it does do something to your mind. And obviously those negative thoughts are way more toxic than some of the physical stuff will ever be. But when that's out of your house, and this is what led me to that initial purge way back when, my textbooks, I've said this before, my textbooks of, failed career, not really failed, but what's the word? More like never came to fruition or something. It just reminded me of someone that I wasn't right now. And the same thing can do with the baby stuff. I'm not a new mom anymore. I'm not a baby mom anymore. I'm a toddler mom now, and I can be fully confident in that phase. And when it's time to be a baby mom, I'll be fully present there, because I will have emptied out my brain and my heart to a point where I can fill it up again.
Well, I think we're going to end it there since we talked about babies for so long, but hopefully this is helpful to the new mom. And if you're not a new mom, I'm sure you are able to relate in some way, or at least, have your own perspective on the same things. So yeah, it's been fun chatting about babies, although it's up that question to me of
I know. Okay, so TikTok, because I always think about it. It's so funny because I didn't know if other people thought about it as much as I do, but I truly think about it so much. But I think if anything, like, it's important to think about those things. It's not important to think about the stuff that's in your house. So yeah, if you can transfer what's your mental space for the decisions you have to make rather than dealing with decisions of the stuff. It's better.
Yeah. Well, this is so good. I don't think I've talked about new motherhood on the podcast ever. So I don't think so. This is good.
It's near and dear. It's such a sweet phase, but it can be so tough.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of different adjectives for it. So, but it's good. So if you are a new mom, like, there are good things, and obviously, like, so many good things, and or not necessarily a new mom, but if you are about to be a new mom, or if you are a new mom, minimalism helps the new mom so much. And that was my experience with it, and I know that's a lot of people's experience of finding it when they're a new mom, or when they do have a newborn, even if it was just like an addition to the family, because that is a time where you want to be able to be focused on these changes that are happening, focused on, you don't want to have to focus on the mess that's all around you. And even though there will be a mess, it will be less of a burden, especially when we've kind of detached our identity from stuff. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, and I hope it made you feel a little less alone on your journey, whether that is in new motherhood or just your journey to a minimalist life, whatever that looks like for you right now. I just hope that this conversation encouraged you a little bit, maybe made you laugh a little bit. If you are listening to this on the day it comes out or through the week it comes out, then next week is the week of Christmas. So if your family celebrates, I hope you have a beautiful holiday, and I hope you're able to focus on the things that are most important to you and let go of the rest. And I will talk to you right back here again next week.